Welcome back everyone. Today we're going to be harvesting our polytunnel grown sweet potatoes. As you've probably noticed, we've already removed all of the sweet potato foliage, which kind of covers the ground like a carpety ground cover. Really beautiful as well. That all got damaged by frost about a month ago, so that's all gone. And you'll now see that we've still got this black plastic down, and that was just because this tunnel was covered in bramble and bracken and all sorts. It was a completely overgrown area. So first thing we've got to do is pull this up, and then we can get to our tubers. Really unsure what we're going to find under here. They could literally all just be complete mush and goo, or we might still have some fairly good harvesting going on. But yeah, very intrigued to see. In an ideal world, we would have got this harvesting done just after the first frosts when the foliage got damaged, but one thing's led to another and we've been really busy with other projects, so it's had to wait. So at least we'll know for next year what's going to happen, and different varieties may act differently. So I'm already noticing that the Molokai purple that were planted right along the bottom here, none of the tubers are exposed of those, whereas some of the Carolina Ruby and T65, they tend to poke out the ground and they're a bit soft. So, you know, it's all experimentation. Just from looking initially here, there are several on the surface that have gone manky, that have been exposed to frost. Another example here. So obviously that's a telltale sign they don't want to be exposed to any frost whatsoever, the tubers themselves, because all the ones that have been exposed are definitely soft and gooey. But let's see what happens underneath the soil surface. Right, here we go, first one then. Looking fairly big from the top. Wow, so these ones have been exposed to the frost, but there's one tiny one on top which is soft, but these other ones are still feeling pretty good. Wow, look at that big boy. Okay, yeah, so these, I can see now, these are Burgard. They've got orange skin and orange flesh as well, which is what lets me know they are Burgard. So far, not particularly great results in all honesty. Again here, I think if you wanted to harvest later in the season, just before the frost, if you could have put a mulch over these, it would have prevented the tips going soft like this. But finding the bits that are underground are still good. So in the worst case, you could still cut these off and then cure them first for a couple of weeks in slightly warm temperatures indoors, and then that will heal up those wounds. So this will be quite a good tester, because this variety here, you can see with the pink flesh on the outside but white inside. Is it white inside? Yep, a T65. So these normally grow amazingly well outdoors. So if we've still got pretty good results in here, then that is a good indication that it is just those other varieties just need better, you know, they're more tropical conditions than we can really give them here in the UK. So straight away though, this is more like the results we're used to, at least equal to what you'd get from a normal potato plant or more. Yeah, much better. So that's the best plant again so far, and that is a T65. So it may be going forward that we literally only grow those and maybe a few of the other varieties just as a novelty. So I'm in a patch of Carolina Ruby right now, and for some reason further down the tunnel here, getting better results from them, but still overall at this moment in time quite disappointing compared to the outdoor T65 we grew. But there are variables, including obviously the water condition, and they didn't get that much water in this year, and also the fact that generally we have a very thick compost mulch and then wood chips on top, whereas we only have a little bit on top of quite neglected soil. This land was previously used as a market garden as well. Hard to show you down here now, but it's very completely like solid clay, rocky stuff. Not stones, but it's just really compacted. So I think for next season, pile on thick with the compost and a bit of wood chips, as well as the watering system. We'll give these varieties one more try. We tried them last year outdoors with pretty much the same kind of results. Nothing really to write home about, but yeah, not going to write them off just yet though, so we'll carry on, see what happens. Good one. Small T65. Not bad, but fairly small overall. We can tell straight away this is a T65 by that lovely pink flesh. More like how we grow outdoors, but yeah, very soft and gooey. A goner unfortunately, and still okay further down though, so you could still eat these if you wanted to use them straight away. Yeah, we didn't intend to leave them in this long unfortunately, but life is life. Oh, still okay further down now. I think with a mulch you could keep them going if you had dry conditions. Okay, so we've just reached our last few plants here, and I thought it was worth showing you because these were a few more novelty items I bought. I got some Japanese purple sweet potatoes from an eBay seller from Poland, very similar to Molokai purple, but they're slightly more ribbed along here. But again, the results, that's it. So again, not really worth it, I don't think, even though they have almost tropical temperatures during the summer in here. And we've got a little bit of turmeric here I planted, which I got from a bit of organic root. And then the last plant here is T65, but in white, which I also got from this guy from Poland. So let's see how this goes. Oh, well, that's the biggest tuber we've had so far. Oh my God, look at that. Wow. God, that's more like it. Yeah, so this could be another variety for the future actually. 265 and 265 white. When I ordered them, all I received was a very small tuber, much smaller than that, about half the size of that, which I started, and I only got about 2 slips from it, and this was the only one who survived. So yeah, well worth. Look at that. Might be a slight bit of damage on this one due to the frost, but I've now made a pile of each of the individual varieties around me here, just to show the differences in yields and how the potatoes form themselves, which is actually quite different between the varieties. So if we look at, first of all, down here, the Molokai purple, a trait that these seem to have is the vast majority of them are very long and thin, like this, which isn't really ideal for a lot of people because they're all going to have, you know, quite varying cooking times if you put them in the oven or however else you like to cook them. And, you know, we like to have ours as almost like jacket potatoes in a way. So, yeah, not overly impressed. And in terms of the yield themselves, these went the entire length of the tunnel itself. And this is the pile we had from them, where you compare that to something like the white T65 here. This was just one plant, and that's almost got the same kind of, not too far off kind of weight than 50 of the Molokai purples. And then moving on to the Carolina ruby here, with the reddish skin and the orange flesh. Now these are a bit better. They do have more of a kind of traditional sweet potato kind of size that you might get in the small packets in the supermarket. And again, the yield's not particularly good for the second year in a row, both outdoors and now indoors. So again, I wouldn't really want to take up a large bed space with these. And the difference between these and the Molokai purple is that they have a much more uniform size, and overall the tubers are quite a decent size for putting in the oven. And then going over to Burgard, these have a very, they seem to vary dramatically in size and shape. You might just get a whopper like this, and then a lot of the others are either just tiny or medium size. So again, not so sold on these, but these are the closest to what, and often what they do sell in the supermarkets, with the orangey flesh and the orangey skin as well. So if you really want to grow the ones that you see in the supermarket, then these are for you, but the yields aren't massive in all honesty. And then another fully purple variety with the purple flesh and the purple skin, with a few white dots internally actually. These are I believe that they're called Okawana from Japan, and again I think I only ended up with 1 slip of these and just got 3 little tiddlers really. Okay, and last but not least, my traditional favourites, the T65, again have yielded brilliantly and by far the most productive variety. I think there was only 3 plants of these in here, and the pile is pretty much the same as the 50 plants of the Molokai purple we had. So it's absolutely dramatically different results. So, and they're all very, not all of them, but vast majority are a very nice uniform size that you'd be happy to buy or pick up at the local supermarket or wherever you normally shop. Okay, so we've just sat down and thought we'd have a few final thoughts on the trials and tribulations of growing the sweet potatoes this year and what we've learned. And I think there's definitely some important points that other people can take from our mistakes this year.
Yeah.
So
definitely, I mean, we knew we were harvesting them too late. So definitely we shouldn't have harvested them this late. That just happened because of life.
Yeah. So ideally, I think get them out before the first frost, really, or just after your first light frost when the foliage is damaged, whether you're growing outdoors or indoors.
Yeah. And then we didn't have enough depth of compost mulch in our in the polytunnel really for growing like good tubers this year. They were just going into the clay, and everywhere else where we grow outside we've got a much deeper layer of compost, and then also the wood chip on top. Like, we know that wood chip works for us when we do the good mulch. It feeds the soil, it just keeps everything snuggled up. Yeah, so wood chip definitely works for us.
Yeah, and I know if you're new to our channel, this is the first video you've seen, you might be thinking, really, what are you talking about? But we grow everything, literally, no dig, putting quite a thick 4 or 5 inch layer of compost down, and then on top of that 4 or 5 inches of wood chips. And we generally just pull the wood chips open and plant the slip into the soil, or whether it's a potato or anything else, into that, and then put some soil around, some compost around there, rather than planting directly into the native soil.
And then we just pull the wood chips back around whatever we've planted. So you just try and keep the two layers as separate as possible. You're always going to get a little bit of mixing in, but on the whole.
I think, which brings it on to the next point of, once the potatoes go through the compost into the your topsoil underneath, they break so easily, whereas our outside ones, again, if you see our other video, growing sweet potatoes outdoors, where they're literally have just grown in that mulch layer, you can just pull them out beautifully. So definitely a good mulch is well recommended.
Definitely, definitely the probably the biggest issue with our growing in here is not having the depth that we normally have. So yeah, and then I think definitely some of the varieties, I don't think we'll grow the Molokai purple again, because their growing habits are just slightly different, it would seem. They grow thinner, longer tubers further away from the main part of the plant, and that's just made harvesting so much harder. One, finding them in the soil, and then two, because they're that much finer, they snap a lot easier again. So again, just in terms of productivity, both with yield and with our time, that's probably just one that we won't continue for that reason.
No.
Despite we love the colour and I love the flavour of the Molokai purple, we've just got to be realistic and focus on what's best for us.
It is a shame, because each of the different colours actually contain slightly different minerals and nutrients. So it would be great if it was worthwhile to grow a whole variety of different colours, but in terms of the space required, it hasn't really been worth it. And it's the second year consistently, both outdoors and now in the tunnel with the higher temperatures, they haven't really performed as well as the T65. So, and in terms of the Carolina Ruby and the Burgard, which is more the traditional type one you'd see in the supermarket, I think out of the two, those two are very similar. So if you wanted a really traditional orange flesh variety, kind of still worth doing Burgard.
We will continue.
We're still going to give them another go for the third year and just see if we have any better results.
Well, hopefully we'll give them the growing conditions that we've realised weren't perfect this year. We'll give them better conditions next year and give them one more try and see if we can up the yields and the productivity a bit. And then, because we love the orange sweet potatoes as well.
And the erratic watering is probably the last point, which has probably had quite a big effect. Although it was interesting to note that because we had some T65 in here as well, they were still consistently bigger and higher yielding than the other varieties in the same conditions. So, and they didn't seem to benefit whatsoever from having the higher indoor temperatures. So it's still looking like T65's the winner. Although the white T65 could be quite exciting. Although at the same time, we do appreciate that a lot of people want to grow sweet potatoes because of the traditional, orange flesh and the red skin. So white flesh and white skin might not be so appealing for some people. But
no, overall, like, so much learning. It's not our best yield by far. It's not our most abundant harvest. But we've done lots of learning and lots of things. We knew we harvested too late, but we just couldn't help it. We thought we'd still make a video and just let you know how it all goes so you can learn from our mistakes.
And that is what life's all about ultimately, just learning from your mistakes and not being too disheartened by it, because we all have failures. You live and learn, and that's the beauty of it. All right guys, well thanks again for watching, and if you haven't already subscribed and liked the video, please be sure to, so you can catch up with hopefully not too many more mistakes we make, but some other hopefully valuable information in the future for your growing.
Hopefully.
Well, peace and plants.
Peace and plants.
Okay, so we've just sat down after having some nice homemade soup for lunch.
No, we don't need to do that. It's like, so don't you just go
I'm looking so sitting like this is not a natural position, isn't it? Well, I'm sitting uphill, that's the trouble.
It'll be fine.
Maybe that's a bit better. So we've just sat down and thought we'd give a few final thoughts on what we've learnt this year from growing the...
Got strings in my head, haven't I? Just keep it short. Thanks for watching.
Okay.